So I think recording is going.
Yes, it shows that it's going on.
Yeah, so your question was, did I run another test?
Yeah. Yes. How are you going with your tests?
So I believe I was able to successfully run a 2D nav goal. It's still a little clunky. And there's a bag file out there as evidence. If somebody wanted me to prove it in court. But yeah, I think I ran a 2D nav goal of about 5 meters, and it successfully achieved that goal. I'm just trying to get it Slack here so I can share the screen a little bit.
Well,
Go ahead, Juan.
yes. No, because I wasn't able to go on through the Slack channel this week because I got a lot of work. But as I understand, you were able to run a straightforward 5 meters.
Yes. I mean, and it's supposed to rain for a number of days, but if I can dodge the rain a little bit, I'd like to get back out there. But for me, what it took was, our last conversation was about talking through some of the tuning steps, and Jeff you guys provided some feedback on things to look at from a tuning perspective. Ultimately, I, took the tractor out in the yard and measured this turning radius. I adjusted the wheelbase because I had, the wheelbase that was still left over from the default that's in there. Jeff had suggested adjusting this XY goal tolerance and yaw goal tolerance, and I just put 1 meter in there just as basically for chuckles, and loaded that up, gave it a goal, and I don't have RViz really well laid out here, but it ran a 2D nav goal. Also, I'm getting some sort of error over here on the robot model that I need to work through. But yeah, it did that. I subsequently tried to run a couple more, and I think I chose a point that was outside of the bound of acceptable for it, and it just sort of went all around and started to do the reverse thing. And so I got one under my belt, and then there's a couple more suggestions here about things on the reverse that I need to try. But so yeah, a little bit of progress. I was also in the UDRF or URDF, the origin statement for the GPS, I think needs to be adjusted too. So you may recall there's an Excel spreadsheet that we put together some time ago.
Yes.
That I spent a little bit of time tweaking a little bit more, and so that origin statement for me needs to be tweaked a little bit, and I added a couple more pictures about where the base link is and where the base footprint is. to that. So anyway, yeah, hoping to continue to tweak the adjustments and run a couple more tests and then try to do the Dubin's path and see how that goes. That would be the next, a simple Dubin's path. So that's
Okay.
what's on my, my list. And then Jeff helped me also figure out how to download YouTube videos. So if you don't know, he's got some fancy tool called YouTube/DL that if you ever want to download YouTube videos, he can explain that to you, or I can give you the first grader explanation. He can give you the college professor explanation.
Okay.
That's what's going on with me.
Okay. Chef, do you want to go on?
Okay, so to continue the saga of Jeff versus the lawn tractor, in last week's episode, I pointed out that if I had my motor set up, let's see, I hook up the power, and if I turn the knob, the motor follows it and does what it's supposed to, more or less. And I was pretty happy with that. But I kept saying, boy, it sure whines a lot. So what I did was I went to, this was the original one here with the standard Arduino, the analog write command. And that's the one that has 256 steps to the PWM, and it has like a 500 Hertz PWM frequency. So when I down this timer one library, so you load the timer one library, and you come down here, and during a init or setup, you say timer one initialize, and 50 is 50 microseconds, which is 20 kHz, supposed to be. I haven't verified that. And then down here, when you go to use it, you just say, it's in the routine up here. Right there, you just say timer1.pwm, and it's the same format. The only trick is it's now, the max is 1023 instead of 255, just because that's the way their function works. So you get 4 times the resolution, and I'm now running at 20 kHz instead of 500 Hertz. So if we load this baby up,
You're doing this real time.
yeah, you can hear the motor still squealing.
Not
Now
anymore.
it's uploading. There, it's done uploading. And now if I turn it, now it sounds like this. Here, let me stop sharing here. So now it acts like that. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Of course, you solved the bug that we all have. We all have that bug.
Do you think the torque is the same?
Torque might be better, but I don't know.
Just don't put the hand there because you only have 2.
Don't do what?
Don't put your hands to test the torque.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got plenty. It'll take your hand right off if you let it.
Yes.
And then I guess the other thing is if I do do this and give it one of these, no, one of these serial plotter.
Chef? I think we lose Chef. Or we lose the audio.
Don't know. Maybe he's uploading something and it's stuck.
Okay. This was you are getting a constant line of work.
It's, you know,
So it looks like we lost Jeff.
Yes.
I don't know what to think of it.
Okay, we'll come back.
I don't know what to think of it, Juan. A part of me is happy to make a little bit of progress, and a part of me is like, why is it so hard?
Yes, I'm getting this. I'm getting always the same feeling that I always go backwards and backwards to get a little step forward. And it's like I'm not consolidating my knowledge about the things, and it's always very muddy, a muddy knowledge, because it's not solid knowledge. But I cannot solve that.
And do you think
It's-
we're
it's-
so
it's too
alone?
much things.
And why are we so
Uh-oh.
alone in the world?
Uh-oh, something just reset there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
oh,
I
yeah.
can hear you.
Yes,
Let's see,
Yes.
where was I? I was talking about, did I show you the plot?
I think you were trying. Yes, you were trying to show something in the serial plotter in the Arduino.
Okay, let's see what happened here. All my windows went away. I know. I was watching my, I see my chat window and my participant window disappeared, and I thought, oh, that was odd, and I kept talking, and then all of a sudden my thing reset and showed my screen, and people are saying we can't hear you. So let's see, where was I here? Stop video, blah blah blah. Let's go back here. Go back here. Okay, there's
Yes.
my plot window. So I was pointing out that see right now I'm at the artificial limit where it's beyond where it can go. So if I slowly move this back, now as soon as those cross, then the motors start controlling again. So now the motor's actually controlling and following right now. And then the other thing I did is, okay, run it. There's the other artificial limit. And see, I can move the red up and down, and the blue doesn't do anything because it's beyond where I told it it's allowed to go. So I bring it back right to the edge. Now, if I crank it this way, yeah, let me do that. So if I crank it hard, see that right there is the, it's showing the maximum power. And the blue line is the actual motor itself moving. So it's got a nice ramp to it. That's the maximum speed the motor can turn at. So that's at full power and full 12 volts. So I'll do that again. So that's just the motor banging back and forth from one, essentially one hard stop. I'll call it a soft stop, from one soft stop to the other. And I'm fairly happy with it right now. And it's, you know, I've done almost nothing in the code to make it do this. So I'm pretty pleased. I think just the way the motor, the way it's geared and the amount of mass it has, it just seems to respond really well to doing this kind of stuff. So that's a good sign that it's
What's
a good
the green
choice to
line,
use
Jeff?
That's the amount of power I'm putting on the motor. So that ranges from plus or minus 1023. So see, as you can see right there, here, I'll stop it again. So as it's moving right there, I assume you can see my cursor.
Yes.
See right here, it's coming along, and they're both equal. And down here, I got a power of close to 0. There's some noise on it. And then as I turn the reference pot, so I change the requested position comes down here, and then it sees it. So the motor cranks up, and that's not full power because full power is 1023. So in that amount of time, the motor didn't go all the way to full power. And then you can see as they started getting close together here, the power starts dropping off. And as they reach a point where they're saying the power drops off to 0 again here. I don't know why it's bouncing here. But anyway, I don't care. It seems to be working. So that's working out fairly well.
What's
And then
the
if I-
actual sensor you have measuring the green line?
I'm not measuring anything. That's just from the code that says the difference between the two pots times gain value. I think I'm at 16 right now. So that's really the PWM value that I'm sending out to the motor. So I'm not measuring anything. That's just a calculated value. And then I also have the point when it gets to that, my artificial limit, that I have it so that it forces the power back to 0 right there, because otherwise it would look like it was at 100% and it wasn't. So I just picked a different variable to print out on the screen. So anyway, it seems to be. And if we just here, let me bang it back and forth. And see, there is a lag there, but that's just because the motor is slow enough that it can't keep up. And in reality, if you watch this, I have to turn this off. So if you watch the pot. See, I probably don't want my steering turned that fast anyway. You know, once I get that on, because if your steering wheel's turning that fast, that's pretty fast. You know, in reality, you're driving around the road, you're driving around your yard, you probably turn it about this fast anyway. So I think it'll work out. I think it's just a 1-to-1 to the steering should work out really well. And I think both of you guys have that. And with my chain drive, I've got a 1-to-1. So that should work out, I think, really well.
It looks fantastic.
And then there's a few more things I want to add to it, but.
Are you able to put the camera on your Citron motor controller? I was just curious about the wiring into your motor controller.
No, it's the same wiring everybody else has. It's just the PWM and direction, and then I have to have a ground reference because I have 2 different power supplies. And then it's got power coming in from the battery, goes to the input side, and the motor coming out there just goes to my motor here. So it's wired up just like everybody else has.
Huh.
And then I'd like to put a current sensor in there.
Chef,
Yes.
Chef, you are using a blue pill board?
No, that's Arduino Nano.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
library I found says it works with either the Arduinos or the Teensies. So the same exact code should work on either one. The only problem is you have to go to that web page, and he's got a table that says on this processor board, you can use this pin and this pin for timer 1, or this pin and this pin for timer 3. And depending which board you have, those might move around. So you have to look at that and see if, determine which pin you can use. And it may or may not be the one you're using right now in your code. So if you decide to change over to this timer 1 library, you might have to move the PWM pin to some other pin.
Okay.
I'm sure you found more benefits than I can even imagine, but I'm just, the daggone noise is the simple benefit. Do you think you're going to be able to adjust the power that you send based on the speed the vehicle is traveling? Like, could you make the steering speed vary based on the speed the tractor is running?
I think the official way to do that is have your ROS driver tell it that. But because I think the way in the full system, I think the way this works is ROS puts out, says this angle, this angle, this angle. If you're driving fast, I think ROS is supposed to be smart enough to pick a steering angle appropriate for that. So that would be inside of if you're running the TEB planner, it would be inside of that to allow that to happen. So basically what I have right now, there's no speed control at all. It expects the incoming command to be sensible and not be banging from one hard stop to the other. Now, what I want to do, I want to add another layer on top of this, which is, 3 or 4 more lines of code that says control the speed of the thing moving back and forth. So if I give it a step function, if I'm at one hard stop and I go to the other hard stop, I can now control the speed of how fast it does that simply by moving the target point. If I say it's at one hard stop, we'll call that 0, and we'll call my other hard stop 1023, because that's what I'm getting off the pot right now. So if I go from one to the other, that's going to be a step function. The motor's going to slam to full power and try to get there as fast as it can. But I can put another a layer on top of that that says, well, if the requested position does not match the existing position, each time through the loop, you add some small increment to that. So I can actually ramp that speed up, ramp up the steering control, and then pick a limit and say, okay, I want that to turn at, 10 counts per loop through there, or 100 counts, or whatever it's going to take to do that. So basically I can just put something else in there that will control the speed of how fast the motor turns. And since I think it's turning faster than what I actually want anyway, that will work out well, because now I can slow it down artificially. What was the other thing I was going to say on that? You were saying kind of control the speed of that. Well, anyway, right now I'm just trying to get the fundamental positioning to work, and then I'll add things on top of that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think the PID controller in my low-level steering control at the moment adjusts the power output.
And speaking of your current code, I went to Google Drive, and of course I could find nothing. Could you post a link to that, or maybe it's not out there? I know last
The main,
meeting,
the main
you said-
CCP.
Go ahead, Juan.
Yes, the main CCP code. You are asking about the
Yes.
one. Yes, I think that I got mine, but I was in the same situation. I will upload it in a GIST, but I'm not sure. Didn't you upload it in a GIST?
I did. Let's just practice here. Juan, you have your spreadsheet that has all of our code, or at least yours and my code.
Yes, I think so.
You
I
want-
have to find. I have to find it out, but
You go to the general tab.
yes, but I was looking. I was trying to find out the GIST. Wait a second.
While he's looking for that, I'll just,
Yes,
I think all of my
here I
code
got
is,
it.
Juan put together a spreadsheet that listed each of our code.
Is that called Juan's action list? Is that in that pin tab? Is that what that one's called?
I put it in the chat. This one, and I will. I don't know if I can share files here.
Well, I just want to remind everybody, you can put up all the links you want, but when they have a 23-digit link, that doesn't really do any good. And then if you go there, you can't back up that directory to find what else is there. So just the fact that if you're trying to use Google Drives, or in this case, something on GitHub has this bizarre number on it, that doesn't really do a whole lot of good. And then when I go to Google Drive, I can't find all the other directories that everybody else seems to be able to find. So I'm pretty much done with Google Drive. So I'm just saying, can you give me a direct link so I can see your code? I did dig through that, said it was a backup of the ROS-Agriculture stuff, and I can't get to any ROS-Agriculture stuff. So that's one of the problems right there. But I went through that, and there was something called front axle steer that is probably close. I can see part of that, but I just wanted to see his current stuff that's he's running. So back to my question I had in there somewhere. So there's something on the pinned links at the top of general, and one says Juan's. Let me see what that said. That's probably, I pulled up something here, and there it is, a spreadsheet from Juan. I don't know if that's the thing everybody's talking about, but
Yes.
it says tasks, and I don't see one that says software that Al was saying exists. Maybe it's here.
No, it's
Wait
not.
a second. Give me just a sec. Okay.
Oh, I'm just looking at it to see if it's actually listed there.
But I assume the stuff that Juan has is the original stuff he got from Matt, so I could compare that to whatever Al has modified on his.
Because it might
Yes. Yes.
require me to, let me just show you what, because it might,
Oh, that link I sent in the chat of the Zoom meeting. I send the GIST link to my code.
that's cool.
I can share it.
Well, let me just show you what I was, because if this doesn't work, then I'll try to fix it, because I would like for this to work so everybody knows where things are at. Back up here in general,
Yep.
there's a Google Drive folder link. There's
Right.
also a sheet with current configurations.
Yep.
If you click on that link, it's going to bring up this spreadsheet that Juan took a little time to put together, which I thought was really good of him to do. And there's a column in here for me and a column in here for him. And the way this works is everything that I've published, there's a link in here for everything under this heading of,
I went through that last night and didn't find anything for your string.
yeah, and so apologies for that. I'm happy to fix that. So I will post that someplace. Because I know that it's out. I'll put it in GIST because that's probably an easier place to pull it from.
Yeah, I personally don't care where it is, just so there is a link to it, since the links aren't linked together. I just need to know where it's at. Because whether things are shared with me or not, if somebody puts up a link, I can go see that particular file. I can't see anything else that's in that same area, but that will get me to it.
Do you have a preference
Yes,
on how we do this?
I think that,
I mean, because certainly we're not trying to frustrate anybody.
I don't know that I have a preference using Google Drive, and I don't know what the alternatives are.
okay. Okay. You know that I put it in the Slack channel. Maybe it's like a dev that I have trying to learn more about the Slack and how to use it. But maybe we can pin up the in the pin that you have upside in the Slack channel to the special folder where we have the files, and not to give a special direction to that kind of files, because maybe the Google Drive is a bit messy, but we can find out something to order much better. Because I think it's something about order. Besides that, I think that one thing that maybe it's important for us is to go back to that spreadsheet and check it out how we are now, because that's something that is evolving through time. Things have changed, or at least for me in some ways, and I hope that and I'm hoping to change that script that I sent to you, because I think that there is a lot of things that can be much better.
I thought it was a great piece of work. Yeah, I mean, if you think if it's not up to date, we should add to it. I actually thought all of the software was there, but clearly not.
Oh, as I'm understanding it now, and I have to check it with one of the guys that I'm working with. Is that the main thing that we can add is the some state machines in the code to make it much better. But I didn't do anything about that because I think that I'm not at that point. I have to get more control of what I have now instead of changing things. Because one of the things that I'm just a little bit scared is to at this point I'm very near in software and hardware to you, to Al, and to Jeff. And if we begin branching those things, maybe we'll get a bit confused, and I will bring confusion to the meetings. So I will try to work with this tool till I broke it. And I think that I'm far from broken it because I have to learn a lot of things to use it much better than try to get another tool.
What do you think you're going to break?
The code, a lot of things that we are much similar now, and one of the things I want to interrupt. It was Chef time. When Chef finish, I will bring out some things that I'm thinking.
Okay.
Sorry, Chef.
So 2 points. I did want to see Al's code just to maybe I'll rewrite that to make it work the way I think it should work. So if I can get a link to that sometime, either now or after the meeting, I'd like to get that. And
Going
then
up on this now.
Okay, and the other point is just because I changed this motor code and it's quieter doesn't mean you should go start changing your code. I'm not suggesting that you start hacking on what you have right now, which seemed to be what you were saying, that you don't want to go do that because you know where you're at. Well, that's a good plan. You know, I need to get further along here before anybody tries to do what I'm trying to do. So I don't want anybody to jump in and start hacking on your code. And one of the most important things, if you have a point where everything's working great, make a copy of that and keep it. Because you say, let me start changing this, and it says, oh crap, nothing works, and I don't remember how it was before. So if you can do that, if you can make a snapshot of it when everything's working, you're going to be much further ahead.
Before you enter to the meeting, I was trying to tell that to Al, that one of the things that I feel pretty stupid about it is that I'm learning that I have to go backwards to consolidate what I have and build and build and build and build, and that's the only way that this has functioned. And one of the things that I didn't get real control about the code because Matt make a lot of the code for me. So that's something that I need to get by myself. So that's why I'm going backwards.
And other than that, I guess that's, as far as my motor control stuff, that's all I have to say. So either we could talk about the command velocity message coming from a joystick and coming from Ted Planner at some point if people want to hear about that.
Yes. The things that I have was the things that I sent in the week to the Slack channel. I'm getting forward the putting on my big breadboard the sensors, the motors, and all that kind of things. This week I was able to begin testing as the system as a whole thing and getting some feedback in an OLED screen, but it wasn't as I expected, but it's going on. The other thing that I wasn't able to explain last week is that as I'm working to the Spanish community, I'm getting some kind of feedbacks about ROS2 and a lot of things. And one of the things that I have learned through I think that we are now 4th month that we are working there, is that most of the people that is working in ROS is working in ROS1 and in ROS in kinetic. And there is a big push from the community and the Open Software Foundation to try to move the people to ROS2, but they are not being able to do it because one of the problems that we understand that is retaining the community is that the most of the people as they use ROS Kinetic is the only, it's like it's the biggest community. And if you have some kind of question, you always have it about ROS Kinetic. And it's like, it's feeding, I'm feeding it again. So people are very conservative of moving to another ROS environment. So if you remember that last year we were talking about ROS2 and those kind of things, it's like a trap because they are moving, they are trying to convince people to go to ROS2, but all the people that have gone to ROS2, they all come back to Kinetic. I'm not sure. I'm working with in the community with 2 guys that one is from Paraguay and they're very good people and very, I don't know how to say, but they have very good vibe. And one of the things that they are working in software, for example, for airports, it's like a framework to make all the robots work in the same channel, as I can explain. And they are doing this for the Robotic Open Software Foundation. And they are doing it in ROS2, but all the robots that they are working for, they are working ROS Kinetic. It's something, so they build it in ROS2 and they build a bridge to ROS1 and ROS Kinetic. So I wanted to share this because for it's like, it's important to understand that the effort that we are doing or we are trying to do by learning ROS1 and Kinetic maybe will be more extended in time as than what I thought, because I think that ROS Kinetic will be in duty, I think, for 3 or 4 more years, and I'm not sure if they will be able to replace it.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if they want people to switch to ROS2, it has to work. You know, that's just it right there. If you could switch over and immediately start running it, that would be great. But things like anything on ROS1 has 10 years of documentation out there, so people know how it works. If you have a problem, there's thousands of answers out on ROS Answers, and they say I'll switch over to ROS2. But if you can't just jump in and make it work, that I think it's going to take a while for it to get to the point where people can do that.
For an example, Chef, the last meeting, it came out a guy from Spain that he's pretty involved in the ROS2 development, and the first 10 minutes he tried, we were talking about the importance of ROS2, but the main thing is that the community is in ROS1 and in Kinetic, and you don't have a community in ROS2. And I think that they are trying to do that, and people are scared to change. and I understand that because I'm scared too. And one of the things that I was scared is to lose the train of the future, as you tell, of object programming when you give us that example. And I feel in the same page with you, but I think that for lack of us, we will have ROS kinetic for a long time.
I would just say that I'm not scared to move to ROS2. It's just that when I look at it, I can't figure it out, which means I've got, you know, hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to do anything in it. So it's just, it's more that it's a waste of time as opposed to being afraid of it. And I'm coming at this from a different point than some people are. If you're in a company and you're going to commit your next project to a specific version of ROS, then it's much more important. You know, these kind of things are much more important. But as a hobbyist, you know, I'm going to use what works and what's easy and what's already documented. And hopefully, you know, if people got modules I can just drop right in and they work, that's great for me. And I don't know, because I haven't looked at all. If I have a module that somebody wrote for ROS1 and I want to convert it to run under ROS2, I haven't looked at all to see what the differences are in the software. If I wanted to write a node from scratch on ROS2, I haven't looked at that at all. And it may be relatively easy. You know, it may be very close to the way ROS1 did it, or it may be something totally radically different. So, but at the moment, I don't want to spend the time to figure that out.
Sorry, Chef. What you are thinking? You are testing on Arduino Nano, and then you will pass to what kind of board?
On my motor control, you're talking about?
Yes, or you will have different boards to the motor controller and the other things, or the other sensors.
Well, what my current plan is, I'm playing with this motor control for the steering, and I just had to pick a processor that would do the job. And I can either use an Arduino Nano, which is a 5-volt processor and a 10-bit A to D converter. And if I want to, the other thing is Matt kept going on and on about using CAN on everything. So if I want to add CAN to this, I have to hook up one of those little $5 CAN converter boards. And I could indeed make this particular processor could run the steering, and I could make it with a CAN interface if I want to, or I can just use the USB to talk back to my computer like Al is doing. I think that's probably the way yours is working also.
Yes.
And then I thought, well, for the heck of it, if I take the same code and put it onto a Teensy just to prove that it works on either type, because what I'm looking at so far, there's really no major difference between them. It's just that you got the little details. One's a 3.3 volt board with a 5-volt board. One has a 12-bit A to D, one has a 10-bit A to D. And you know, just down the line, there's just little differences between them. And there's really no reason, you know, for what I'm doing right now, it takes very little to actually make this run. So it doesn't really matter what processor I put on there, what processor or what board I put on there. So my next steps on what I'm doing right now, I thought about just making up a little tutorial that says, you know, in order to get this motor to track, you know, here's just a short, you know, 20-line Arduino type program, and just put the listing into a file and say, load this up, you turn this knob and the motor will follow it. And then the next one says, okay, now let's add some other function onto it, like I was talking about, limiting the speed, being able to control the speed of it. You know, have a second program, so okay, add this on and load the code, and it should do this. And then go to the next one and say, if we want to set end limits, maybe you want to put micro switches or those magnetic sensors onto your steering somewhere. So if the thing goes all the way to the hard stop, it turns on a switch, so you know that it's there, so you don't accidentally burn up the motor or break your linkage or something. So it'd just be another step and say, okay, now you could add this to it. So just number one, going through these just little pieces at a time, so people know, they know why the motor tracks my pot. You know, that's very important to know. And then say, you know, here's different things you can do to that to make it work better or make it work worse, or for your particular application, you may want to do this. And then you just keep building up. Then eventually you say, okay, now let's have some kind of some kind of communication between our ROS machine and our little microcontroller. And I usually just have send a text message down and send a text message back. And I know Al is running ROS serial and Juan might be running ROS serial. So that's another thing. So, okay, we could add ROS serial on top of this just to pass the numbers back and forth. So you just go down the line and do that. And I can't decide if I don't want to just make, say, maybe a PDF file and put the, say, let's do this, and then put a block of code, and then say, now let's do this and put a block of code, put some pictures in there for wiring diagrams. Or maybe I'm going to actually get around and do my, I keep saying I'm going to do YouTube videos. So that might be a good thing to start with and say, okay, here's my PDF file that tells you that, and I'll go through and show you in real time, this stuff does work. And, here's different things you can expect out of it. So that's just kind of what I've been thinking lately. And whether or not I get up the ambition to do that, we'll see.
Okay.
That sounds like it would help a lot of newbies just coming on the scene.
Jeff, while you were talking, I just wanted to point out a couple of things on when you start to look at the steering code. Let me get to a sharing button.
Let me quickly answer Bob's question. He says, why are people attracted to ROS2 in the first place? Well, partly they kept patching ROS1 year after year after year, and they finally said, let's fix this. It's a mess. Let's fix it. Let's make it cleaner. Let's make it under the hood. They wanted to make it work better. And so they added on this new networking system where you don't have to have a single ROS master. You can now have multiple devices. They come on and automatically find everybody else that's there. And plus they added a lot more security to the networking. So the thing is, they kept saying, we're going to clean this up someday. And they said, well, we've drawn a line in the sand. We have cleaned it up. We want people to switch over to it now. So the people writing it want everybody to start using it so they can tell them what's wrong with it or start improving it. And so that's the main reason why people are attracted to it, because the people writing it say, you should use this now. And it does have certain benefits to it. But plain old ROS1, it's been around forever. You can load stuff up and it will work. And there's plenty of documentation on it. So I'm not sure that, making a jump to ROS2 until people can come out and say, here's a demo to make a lawn tractor work with ROS2, you load it up and it'll work and everybody be happy. When it gets to that point, then it might be worth looking at it, in my humble opinion. That's what I think. Okay, Al,
Yeah.
I'm done.
I'll stay with ROS1.
Chef, for the record, I think that the only difference that I have with the main CCP code from Al is that I have the potentiometer to measure the position of the steering wheel. I really think that there is not another difference.
I think he was playing with the actual drive, what everybody keeps calling the PID. I think he was modifying that from what was originally there. And what Matt originally had, I wasn't real happy with what he did anyway. So basically, I just want to see how the whole thing goes together. So if I say I've got this running, I just wanted to see how other people have implemented the ROS serial and everything on top of it. And I could either just modify that, drop it in, and say, here, go test that and see if it works for you, or whatever. So.
Something else that I implemented, you're going to scratch your head and say, what in the hell was he doing? So I'm in that GIS thing that I just sent you. You're going to see this get parameter steering line in there.
Yes.
And these are just some notes that I made. I got tired of having to recompile the program every time I wanted to change the left max setting and the right max setting, and this power effort and the KI for the PID. So this ROS param steering let me dynamically set it in the launch file as well as dynamically change it. So I just wanted to point that out. And I can explain more when you get down into the middle of it. But that's where that comes from, and it's unique to me, right? Nobody told me to do this. I didn't borrow this from anybody. I just made it up. And it was an attempt to keep me from having to recompile the program every time I wanted to change any one of those variables. So you'll
Yes,
see that.
I was aware of that you put that in there. One minor comment, I think you were like saying download those every 10 seconds or something. There's probably a way to just simply say send parameters to it and not have to not have it constantly updating parameters like that. But that's just a minor point.
There you go. You'll make this better than I ever could even imagine.
And if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can figure out how that dynamic reconfigure works. I think there's a lot more work to get that to work, but that way you can actually pull up your window and say in real time, you can just drag those things back and forth and talk to it. But I've never tried that, so I don't know how much extra work that is to make that work.
Well, can you tell that thing to load your own internal variables? So, I mean, this is an internal variable that I set in my program, not some standard ROS variable name.
Well, if you want to run that with dynamic reconfigure, you have to go into your code and say, this is a parameter and I want it so I can publish that. And then, so when you start up dynamic reconfigure, it'll say, oh, it's Al's motor controller. Here are all the variables that you have defined in your code, and those numbers will show up. And then you can go either type them in or drag the little slider back and forth and change those in real time, and it automatically talks back and forth. But there's more code involved to make all that work. So
Yeah.
it's like what you're doing, where you just have a thing that says do like a get parameters, and it loads the parameter in. It's the same concept. It's just an extension of that.
Yeah.
They figured out how to do that in real time.
And parameter, I'm just basically polluting the network with one variable array with, I guess, list with 5 elements in the list, as opposed to publishing a whole bunch of stuff, right? And all the overhead to publish a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. You're going to see that in there and say, well, where the heck did that come from? That's what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I already knew that was in there, so it's not a big surprise.
Maybe the main thing that we can do besides breaking something is add some kind of comments to the code to improve it, but not touching the code, only comments.
Oh, this needs, to me, this PID is not Jeff's going to look at this and he's going to say, this isn't a PID. And I'm going to like, yeah, okay, you're right. And then he'll be right. And it'll get really, really better because he's a better programmer than me. So, like, what's your point? So anything else, gentlemen? Juan, anything else going on in your world?
I hope to get improving next week and organize my code.
Well, I will be around and probably at the kitchen table as opposed to in the backyard because it looks like it'll be raining. So if you want to chat over the weekend, I'm sure I'll be around.
You know something. One thing that we can talk is maybe understand which is the way to organize better the Google Drive, because the thing that point out Jeff, it's true. It's like messy. So we have to find out the way to organize that, to use it better for us.
Well, here's a thought.
Yes.
And this is just a crazy idea. Jeff took all these videos and put them on a separate drive, and he sent me a copy. What if each of us had a network drive connected to our home network, and all three of them were connected and constantly replicating? Would that be an alternative? Because if we had a VPN and those three were connected, then anybody we wanted to could have access to those three drives, and we wouldn't be mucking around with Google.
I think that we can do a little step that maybe is not so big that I will propose it like this. Maybe I'm not being able to explain it, but I use an application that is called Tree that lets you. It's like build you a map of the folders that you are using. One of the things that I can do with Ubuntu is to mount the Google Drive folder in my computer and try to build a map about the Google Drive and discuss and we can chat about that map and which is the best way to organize it. It's like a first step before doing the other things. Is let's look what we have and see if we have something, because I think that we have things that are duplicated and triplicated, because I don't understand how much info that we have. There is a lot of info that I don't know if it's important.
I, for one, like that mapping tool. If you could post it on random.
Yes, yes, it's a command line tool. It's called Tree because I found out this problem a lot of times, that you began working, and you lose control about the folders that you are building, and you don't remember where's the folders and how is the map of the complete hard drive, and that let you build that kind of map.
Just to comment on Al's suggestion, what about setting up an independent server where everyone gets access to, and then just hang a big hard drive on it or something?
Well, that's effectively what I was suggesting, but not just one. Have basically 2 or 3 network attached storage devices, so that we never have to worry about one of them, for whatever reason, not being available. I mean, Jeff, do you have any thoughts?
I'm not going to do that.
I don't have problems to do it.
I don't know enough about it. So.
And that's exactly my point. I don't know how any of that works, and I don't want to open up my computer and my network to everybody in the world. And even if somebody says, "Oh, it's protected," well, it's not, because just because.
Yeah.
I'm at the same point, and I think the same as you. And I think that we can do that. The thing that I was proposing, like it's a little step that will be just something that we can do.
And so what is this thing that you're referring to? Because I mean, I get it. Google Drive might not be perfect, but
No. The thing that I'm saying is it's not to change Google Drive, it's to apply some kind of order to Google Drive. Let me share my computer and I will show you. You see?
Yeah.
Well, this is 3. This will give us a map about how the Google Drive. I have to mount the Google Drive in my computer, and I will get this map, and I will show you the map next week, and maybe we can get some decisions over it to try to order it. Because I think that we have to keep on using Google Drive and not share our computers. I think that the chef point is right, but we have to apply some kind of order to the folders and that kind of things in the Google Drive to be much productive.
Does that program come with some type of a search function?
No, I only use it to map the folders and the files.
Is that a Linux command?
Yes, but you have to install it. It's sudo apt install tree like the outside tree.
And probably you do tree -- help. It'll tell you all kinds of fun things about it.
Yes.
There's probably a whole bunch of things it will do. So back to Bob's question, maybe it will indeed. Maybe it has all kinds of wonderful functions you could use.
Yes. You have to put the folder like this. This is the folder that I'm working. I think that this is, and you can do this, like this, and copy to a file and share it. It's much easier. So I think that with that tool, we can take some decisions, funded decisions, and not talking in the air.
for me at the moment, the only cleanup activity that I think would be useful, I mean, I'm sure there may be others, but one that I see that would be useful is we've got 2 or 3 spreadsheets with lists of the bill of materials and lists of actions. And I think those could be cleaned up.
Yes, but we can, if you are able to work with that with me, we can merge all that spreadsheets in only one and don't lose any data. Are you able to do that, Al?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure if I will able to work tomorrow, but on Sundays, surely I will have 1 hour, 2 hours.
Okay, just ping me.
Okay. I ping you in the in the Slack channel.
No, WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, okay.
No,
Okay.
Slack.
Slack or WhatsApp?
No. Google Meet.
Well, I will have to leave, so.
No, Zoom.
There are too much communications.
Bob, anything?
Not anything really to boast about. I went through the Ubuntu tutorial, and I'm beginning to realize the significance of what you're typing. It's got to be perfect or it screws it up. I got my new replacement motor controller, and this afternoon I'll be getting the Tinsy 3.2 with the tutorial kit. So that I'll be focusing on that tutorial first, and then we'll see what goes from there.
The blinking tutorial, that kind of things.
Yeah, there's a kit of pots and LEDs and things that you can get, and then you can practice your programming, and they step you through that.
Okay.
Any of those tutorials are a fantastic place to start, in my view. I've always commented Joseph Linton is also a good place to start. He's written a lot of books. He's got a lot of, and they've made their way to electronic versions of them on the internet all over the place.
Oh, one other thing I did was I copied Jeff's index of the videos, and then I played around with some of the applications on the iPad. The iPad has one called Book. It's more or less for reading books or documents or whatever. So I downloaded that, changed the font to the smallest size, 9 font. It ended up being a book of 50 some pages. But so far, what I like about it is I can search by keywords, and it'll take me to the page that it's referenced, and it'll show like the timestamp on it. And once I find it, locate it on the page, I can just touch the address for the video, like the HTTP address, and it immediately goes to that video.
Man.
And then once I'm on that video, I can drag up to where the timestamp is, like 2.0. Like back in the day when Jeff showed his remote control and talking about the LED, that's why I decided to go with Tinsy and learning the tri-state LEDs and everything else.
I will have to leave.
Just goes to show you nothing ever dies on the internet. See you, Juan.
Bye.
Bob, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Jeff, you're on mute.
Oh, just a comment about nothing ever dies. Well, when can we
I can hear you.
stop the recording?
Turning off now.